When you think you've made it, when you think you've gotten to the top and you don't need anything else, that's when you start dying. You're not doing anything to help yourself take it over the top. That's just the wrong thing to say. And he'll learn, it's first time, really being a real head coach. But to say that Dak is in the developmental stage, you think the developmental stage, you're working with rookies, second-year players.
You're teaching them how to, be an NFL quarterback.
Right. Not a, big-time NFL. And I'm going to say Dak is a big-time quarterback, but, hey, like I said, the Dallas Cowboys are the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they always going to keep something going on. Dak's like...
Development.
What the hell you mean, development? Come on.
Talking about development?
Yeah.
What? Talking about development? I got what you're saying there, Schottenheimer, but nah, that ain't it.
Right.
We're going to be back to wrap it.
Go to the gridiron. Voluntary OTAs continue around the NFL today, including all 4 NFC East teams that are participating. The Giants come into the season with a crowded quarterback room. They signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and today they officially signed Jackson Dart, who they drafted 25th overall. He's the 4th quarterback they've selected in the first round in the common draft era. How about them Cowboys? They come into the season after missing the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. They did address some holes this offseason by acquiring George Pickens and signing running backs Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. The Commanders, they look to build upon their emergence last year. They gave rookie sensation Jayden Daniels some protection and weapons this offseason, trading for tackle Laramie Tunsil and receiver Deebo Samuel. Then the defending champs, the Eagles, they have a much different roster than the one that won it all. Coordinator Kellen Moore is now in New Orleans, and on defense, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and Darius Slay are all gone. We are now joined by senior NFL writer Bill Barnwell and senior front office insider Mike Tannenbaum. Bill, let's start with you. Your latest story on ESPN.com gives out superlatives for every NFC team and the off seasons that they've had. So let's go through some of these NFC East teams. What's your superlative for the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles? Okay, it looks like Bill Barnwell is maybe frozen. And so, Mike T, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles here. Look, they spent a ton of money on the offensive side of the ball. In terms of the defense, what should we expect from them?
Yeah, Shay, good thing I did my homework. I read Bill Barnwell's article, so I'm ready for that question. So look, they lost multiple players on the defensive line, and when that happens, that puts a big drain in terms of experience and production. So Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham retired. Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt have to be productive for the Eagles to maintain the level that they've been at. Now look, these are young players that have great upside. I think they're going to play well, but when you lose 3 players like that, it's a big concern. And also reportedly within the last hour, Adam Schefter reported that Bryce Huff, last year's big free agent acquisition, is allegedly going to be traded from Philadelphia to San Francisco, where he'll be reunited with Robert Saleh, the defense coordinator of the 49ers, who used to be the head coach of the Jets, where Huff was very productive. So that's another loss for the Eagles, one I'm sure they were planning on.
Yeah, but they keep Vic Fangio, which is definitely a positive on that side of the ball. And so now we have Bill Barnwell. And Bill, I posed this to you. I don't know if you heard me, but let's hear your superlative for the Super Bowl champion, the Philadelphia Eagles.
It's most likely to inspire jealousy in other teams. Of course, it's because they have those Super Bowl rings. I know Mike T just talked about the defense, but the offense inspires jealousy in Joe Burrow, who came out this offseason and said, hey, the Eagles are paying everybody. And they are paying everybody on the offensive side of the football, more than $214 million to their offense this year in cash, the most of any team in NFL history after they set that record the prior year with this offense. 10 of their 11 players on offense, 11 starters, are getting paid veteran salaries outside of right guard. They're paying everybody on that side of the ball, and obviously last year they got the results they were hoping for. They're bringing pretty much everybody back on offense for another go-round in 2025.
Right, which obviously is very costly. Let's talk about the Cowboys now. Bill, back to you. What is your superlative for Dallas this offseason?
They are most likely to believe in their old scouting reports. We've seen the Cowboys make some moves for some guys who haven't necessarily been great at the NFL level, but who they think can live up to their draft expectations. Last year it was trading for Jonathan Mingo. This offseason they traded for Kenneth Murray and Kyer Elam, 2 former first-round picks who have struggled. Guys like Peyton Turner and Solomon Thomas were signed. former first-round picks who have struggled. And then they make the big trade for George Pickens, obviously a guy who's played well at the NFL level, but who has maybe first-round talent with second, third, fourth, fifth round, maybe off-field behavior. So there's a mixer. The Cowboys think they can get the most out of these guys, even if they haven't necessarily consistently been all that great outside of Big D.
Right, and you have a first-year head coach and Schottenheimer there now too. Mike T, which new addition, though, do you think will be the most impactful for Dallas in 2025?
George Pickens, and here's why, Shay. When you acquire any player, but especially wide receivers in the last year of their deal, which back in the day we did with the Jets, Santonio Holmes, Braylon Edwards, you can get massive production out of them because they won a new contract. Over the last 3 years, he's averaged 16.3 yards per reception, best in the NFL. He's a point scorer as well. Knowing that CeeDee Lamb's going to get a lot of the coverage, Shay, I think he's going to be extremely productive for Dallas. I think it'll be a hard problem for them to have in terms of trying to sign him to an extension, but I think he impacts them from day one.
Yeah, this will be such an interesting thing to see what happens with George Pickens. And you and I, Mike T, have talked about this a lot. Why did the Steelers let him go? We'll find out. Finally, Bill, what is your superlative for the Commanders this offseason?
They're the most likely to have an early dinner and get to bed at a sensible time. They're a little older than I think people are giving them credit for right now. They have, of course, a great young quarterback in Jayden Daniels, but they were the 7th oldest team in football last year on a snap-weighted age basis. They had guys like Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner, good players, but in their mid-30s, kind of to kickstart their move forward. They exceeded expectations, but then this offseason went out and added a bunch of veterans, traded for Deebo Samuel, traded for Laramie Tunsil, signed Will Harris, moved on from some younger players, and only had 3 picks in the top 200 of the draft because they sent some of those draft picks out to get veterans. So we saw this with last year's Texans, another team that had a very promising young quarterback, kind of expected them to take a step forward. They sort of stagnated. I'm a little concerned the Commanders might have the same thing happen because there's just not that young core of talent around their superstar quarterback.
Not 29-year-olds looking like they old. No, Mike T, what do you see as Washington's ceiling this season?
The Super Bowl, and in particular, Bill mentioned all the reasons why they're older and more experienced, but Laramie Tunsil, Deebo Samuel, 2 great players in the prime of their careers at impact positions, left tackle and receiver. We talked about the impact of Pickens. I think Deebo Samuel will do the same for this Commander offense. And if Jayden Daniels has